Good evening. Yeah, definitely my wife and daughters deserve that round of applause. So you did your homework. You did your homework. Thank you. What an evening. I also know exactly why you gave your beautiful wife, or she wanted the responsibility of introducing the those amazing children. Thanks for that. This is special. I've told a few of you. I'm not a stranger to speaking in front of large groups, although this one is unique. I will say that. This is a very special group, but what makes you special is what makes this a little harder than usual. And I've had to reflect on this a little bit. Unfortunately, I have a lot of experience with this subject and what it means to never forget. So I will try to stick to what I've put down here on paper just to keep me on track. But I'm truly honored to be here with this special group of people and an amazing foundation. So thank you. So David and Cynthia, thank you for what you do. Thank you to the board. Thank you to the donors. This is something else. And thank you for that introduction. You did your homework well. There's a couple people's names that flashed through my head that I think you had phone calls with. Yeah. So, but sometimes 30 years of service feels a little bit like ancient history, and honestly, that's okay sometimes. I often say you're only as hard as the last hard thing you've done, and if you haven't done anything hard lately, you're not that hard. Of course, the older I get, the more I realize that sometimes just getting out of bed is hard. I was reminded the other day a little bit of that Betty Davis quote, getting old ain't for sissies. So I really like meeting your sons tonight and your daughter and the other cadets that are here tonight. I mean, it invigorates me and gets me excited to still put this uniform on and be able to serve my country knowing that they are the future. And that is special. So I'm fully aware I'm the only thing between us and amazing dinner. I already confirmed that just through the salad we had. But there's a few things I'd like you to take away tonight. What you all do for our military families is incredible, but it's more than just generous. It's part of what makes us the best military in history. Ours might be a peacetime military right now, but we live in a very dangerous world. Our sailors, our soldiers, our airmen and Marines and Guardians, we're going to be called upon to fight again. Maybe soon, honestly, and it will not be easy. And whether you realize it or not, everyone in this room will play a part in that. So I'm going to talk about three things this evening. First, I want to tell you about your Army and what it stands for today. There are a lot of perceptions out there, and many of them are frankly inaccurate. Second, I'd like to tell you why this foundation plays a bigger role in our nation than you might suspect. And third, I'm going to talk about the future we all face. So firstly, I'd like to let you know in on what your Army stands for these days. And I'll specifically talk the Army because I'm a little biased. But I know my joint teammates are on the same page that I am. There are a lot of perceptions out there, and like I said before, frankly, they're quite inaccurate. And for the last 20 years, I've been focused predominantly on counterterrorism. I've gotten up and close and personal with some rough characters, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, just to name a few. And I've seen what it takes to build a ready, disciplined, fit team that can hunt these types of individuals down. And General Menace is here. Where are you, sir? Yeah, you're over here. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. Thank you, sir. And he knows exactly what it means to build a ready, disciplined, fit team that can hunt these types of individuals down, whether it's in the chaos of a city or remote mountains. It's not easy. And I've seen men break down at the loss of teammates, and I've broken down myself. But when I look at the future, I can see that the next big fight is going to be even more complex. Just looking at the battlefield of Ukraine, I can see that war is changing. For one, it's impossible to hide. Even the phones in our pockets give away our locations. Because of technology, our enemies can see and therefore hit anywhere. Soldiers have to blend in with the noise, and AI and unmanned systems are changing the game. for not much money. To keep up with those challenges, our soldiers must adapt, evolve, innovate, train all the time. So let me tell you right now, whatever you might hear in the media, your Army is focused on war fighting. That is what we do. This is the very reason we exist, to fight and win when the nation calls upon us. Soldiers of every generation are training to do that, and they're tough as nails. So please, take that home tonight. Which brings me to my second point, which is that foundations like this play a bigger role for our nation than you might suspect. There are countless stories out there, but I have a couple from my community that I'd like to share with you. First is Captain Daniel Edgars, who was a commander of a Special Forces detachment when he was killed by an IED in Afghanistan. Growing up, Dan was a tough man, outspoken, confident, and he lived a happy American life. But when he got to Afghanistan, he faced a hell most of his childhood buddies couldn't fathom, because battle is exhausting, chaotic, and sickening. But in the face of that, Dan didn't hesitate. He led. Our American military is incredible. Our partner nations don't want to fight without us, and our enemies fear us because of soldiers like Dan. Disciplined, fit, full of energy and commitment. But the reason the American soldiers are so formidable isn't the stuff they have, it's their commitment, their discipline, and their heart. And those characteristics are derived partly from the knowledge that if they die on the battlefield, their fellow Americans will embrace the people they leave behind. Their husbands, their wives, and most importantly, their children. Dan Edgar's little boy, Billy, was about 3 when his dad died. But just a couple months ago, Billy graduated from the Citadel and plans to be commissioned as an Army officer. Dan's legacy and his memory live on. Then there's the story of Sergeant First Class Stephen Langmack, a Seattle native that loved the Army. Steve was a ferocious warrior who backed down from nothing. He and his wife Rachel had 2 sons, Sam and Carson. Carson was only 7 when he lost his dad that day in Al-Qaim, Iraq, 2005. But he was old enough to know he lost his father, and his brother and his mother were hurting. Steve knew the friends, family, and community that would surround his family, or any of our families, if we didn't come home. And that gave Steve the fearlessness required for the mission. That confidence gave Steve his ferocious mindset that allowed him to close and engage in our violent and deadly profession. I was with Steve that night when we lost him, and I can attest he was a warrior who loved his country, his family, and the honor that comes from being a member of the U.S. Army warrior class. Carson, his youngest, is now grown and recently graduated with his Master's of Science in Homeland Security and Policy from American University in Washington, D.C. But what probably makes his father most proud is Carson's passion for giving back to the same community that helped raise him. And he does this by speaking and mentoring other Gold Star surviving family members, and especially teens. It's people like you and foundations like this that make our military really great. You make it resilient and strong and able to defend the nation. Which brings me to my third and final point about the future we all face. And I'm sure everybody has been watching the news on Israel and Gaza, and it's absolutely heart-wrenching. There'll be children on both sides without fathers and mothers when this is done. But it's also not an isolated thing. In today's interconnected world, regional events can have global impacts. The environment is complex, and it's more dangerous now than it has ever been before. Our adversaries are strong and growing bolder, and they have capabilities that are nearly on par with ours. As a nation, we haven't dealt with that kind of dynamic in a long time. The next war we face could bring staggering casualties, both because of the interconnection and because of the capabilities of all the players on the field. That means, as a society, we must be prepared to embrace those left behind, just like this foundation has been doing for so long. Because we are a nation that cherishes our fallen. And we remember the incredible sacrifices that our service members' spouses have made and continue to make every day. They are the unsung heroes who eagerly wait their soldiers to come home, who nurture the dreams and inspirations of their children, and who endure the unimaginable with grace and resilience. I'll conclude by saying our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and guardians will be called again to fight. Maybe soon, and it won't be easy. Some of you may or may not feel directly affected by that fact, but I'm here to tell you it will affect all America. What you all do for our service members and their families isn't just generous. It's not something good happening on the periphery of world events. It is what makes our military and our country great. We are a nation that does not forget. Every morning after doing that hard thing I mentioned, getting out of bed, I get in a workout. And my house on Fort Myer overlooks Arlington National Cemetery. It's in those early hours I can just start to make out the rows and rows of white headstones. My grandfather's buried in that cemetery, and so is my grandmother, and many, many of my teammates. And when I look out at those stones, I think about what I'm charged to do, what I must accomplish each and every day to carry on their legacy. And I can't help but remember what Abraham Lincoln said. It is for us the living to be dedicated to the unfinished work of the dead, so that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish on this earth. Thank you, everyone, and this is truly a great honor. God bless America, and this will defend.